when it's a necessity, the whole world had to adopt. Welcome back to yet another episode of Matrickz Tech Talk. Today, we're going to talk about a topic and we name it Adapting to Adopt. And we have Davide from a luxury automotive car manufacturer in the sports arena. And he has been working as a technical project manager in that branch for a while. So today's discussion is going to be a bit philosophical in terms of autonomous vehicle, and we're going to talk about adapting to adopt. Davide, welcome to Matrickz Tech Talk.
Good afternoon, Hasan, and thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to join you and discuss about automotive cars and a little bit more with you.
Amazing. So, Davide, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your passion, and the idea of adapting to adopt?
So, well, my description, I guess I'm a good representation of a citizen of the world. Throughout my life, I've been living in 4 different countries. I'm from Italy, and I spent quite a considerable amount of time in the United States. I studied in Scotland, and now I'm living in England. And also in terms of technical expertise, I feel like I've been involved in different aspects of engineering, from aerospace to automotive, and specifically in automotive. In my past 7 years, I've been involved from actually what is really the start of what at my current company is vehicle engineering as a whole. And you asked me about passion. Well, passion is about probably people. The people aspect of my job is what drives me the most. The more departments I'm in touch with, the more I get excited about the product. I like to see the whole umbrella of the vehicle rather than being very, very focused on one single aspect. Another thing that is amazing that happened to me in the last 12 months is that I became a parent, and specifically my wife and we decided to adopt a little child, and so therefore adoption.
Congratulations to that.
Thank you. So then obviously adoption has been part of my journey for quite a few years now, and I love it. I see it everywhere now.
That's a beautiful story, Davide. I really like that you're telling this personal story which relates to the massive adoption. I would say it's a necessity that the mankind is going through, and we're going to go through. Now, we want to talk about adapting to autonomous vehicle ADAS. And obviously, we want to hear your personal experiences as far as you want to share, and how can we relate that to ADAS or autonomous vehicle. I'm going to start with the drastic change that we have experienced. We had to adopt to a certain lifestyle in the last 1 or 2 months. It's been a massive change for many of us. And this kind of changes are becoming a part of our life. Autonomous vehicle is going to change civilization totally from the way we know it now. And it's coming. We were very wary of it. Some people were very skeptic about it. Some people even brought the examples of, we're not meant to be autonomously driven. We should be driving by ourselves. Reminds me of the Wright brothers' time when we were inventing, to fly. People talked about we belong to the earth, we shouldn't fly, and that kind of a thing. But when it's a necessity, the whole world had to adopt. So what's your viewpoint on that? The way we moved to a new kind of life, and when we want to move to a new kind of life with autonomous vehicle, what is the barrier, what is the opportunity, and how does it relate to your way of adapting to a new lifestyle?
First of all, I just wanted to touch on this specific period in the last decade, really. So I've been working from home like probably a lot of other people. in the last few weeks and months. But rather than being stuck in the what is not working, what is limitation that we all have to deal with, I force myself to look at the opportunities that I have. I obviously have a lot more time to spend with my family. I cut the whole commute, even if I'm really living close to my office. But as a whole, I feel like there is so much more that we forget to enjoy, that if we do want to, we have the opportunity and the possibility to explore in the last few months. Specifically, my own story, which I then try to apply to everything that I do in other aspects of my life, again, is around how I became a parent. And if you don't mind me expanding on this, I think
Please.
I can spend hours and days talking about this, but I feel like I want to narrow it down to three main points that probably a lot of people that went through the same journey as I did will be able to relate to. So one aspect is that a lot of people just they have this perception of that parenting will only be good and because your child will look like you, while I don't have that. This story, this aspect caused to me and to my family a lot of reflection time. And basically, I can see in my own story a lot of grieving cycles, but also exploring what really a possible topic aspect of life really means to you. And the second point is that I didn't have the chance to choose my child's name, which is also another aspect that a lot of people ask me. A lot of people will go through in the same journey as I did. But again, instead of considering that as a limitation in my own journey as a parent, as a person, I consider it as a gift, because in essence, I got this little child as a gift to my life. And he's unique like any other child. And his name is part of this uniqueness. And I feel like it's almost more beautiful to go through that journey. And the third aspect is that, without going too much in details, is that we didn't have our child from day one. So I will always have to deal with this thing, which is that I would not know the part of his life before we have our child. Yeah, these are three very big aspects of what I consider the core of my last few years. My journey, my family journey, my community journey. And I can see that there is a lot in common with the autonomous driving revolution, if you want to call it that way.
Amazing. So that is a very, very interesting story. So let's move to the adaptation of our lifestyle into something that we will be moving into in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years eventually, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest steps in the history of mankind, because this is going to change. This is going to impact our life. This is almost like such impact we had when we invented the agricultural industrial revolution. This would be another revolution in that sense. We have skeptics, we have proponents, and we have all sorts of people viewing this from different angles. With your three lessons that you just mentioned that you learned, how do you think that relates to the way we are moving toward autonomous vehicle ADAS domain?
Let's start from the very first. So from the very first aspect of my journey that I share with you, there is a lot of, I have this expectation from driving, and in reality, my expectation is completely different, completely separated from my expectation, really. So I guess I can take it from different angles. I can start with the type of customers that I've been exposed to. That doesn't mean that luxury cars, they all have the same customers, but the autonomous driving could be seen in the sport car sector as a limitation, because our customers, they probably get their cars because they want to be behind the wheel and they want to be the person to perform as fast as possible, to drive as fast as possible, whatever is their expectation from a sport car. On the other end of the spectrum, there is probably the majority of the population, whereas the car is a mean of transportation to get to a certain point. And I guess in that aspect, the revolution will be more about trusting the decision the computer will make on behalf of the driver. But again, this is my opinion. Like in terms of sports car, I feel like there is a lot that different companies can do in terms of shifting the expectation, the mindset of the customers to possibly match actually what they want to get from the car. So the customer of a sports car, I want to drive as fast as possible. A lot of customers probably don't even get the possibility to experience the full potential of a very fast car. So autonomous driving could be, for example, one opportunity for the electronics in the car, and not just the electronics, to show the customer what the car is capable of. And then from that point on, it's back to customer in full control, for example, on a racetrack where not necessarily the legislation will be mandatory. And so then they can switch off the ADAS features and they just try to beat that autonomous driver.
Fascinating. So what you're saying essentially is what we have done in our Nintendo games. We actually have tried to beat the AI. So what you're saying is real racetrack will also be about beating the AI. So it's very interesting because it's not very often we talk about this particular segment of the automotive industry. It's luxury sports car industry is not only about racetrack, it's also about people driving in certain conditions that's not usual. Yeah, I mean, in Germany, we don't have any speed limit in the Autobahn. This is a very unique country. People come here to do these kind of things they are not able to do in other countries. So we see all sorts of things in the Autobahn with luxury cars, luxury sports cars. People from all over the world come here. Now, what you're saying is in the racetrack or in the Autobahn, wherever it is, your AI will be showing you the full potential that this is what you could practically do. And then the human will try and emulate that if he can be as good as the AI or even beat that AI. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess so. So that would put very different things on the table, from changing, again, the mindset from an obstacle to an opportunity, but also from people like me that are involved in the design of the car. That will work as an opportunity for all of us to then develop the software that will be capable of getting the best out of the car. And, if you go back to the video game example that you shared, if you chase someone, you want to know that someone is the fastest possible. So that the challenge is back to engineering.
Allow me to bring some safety aspects here. You brought in one particular feature that could be interesting for your type of customer, the type of customer you're used to deal with. Do you think you will be able to also convince your customer saying that, hey, it's going to cover your back as well if something happens? It's going to make it more safe. Do you think that would be an argument? Or people don't care about that? What do you think?
That will have to come as a given. So I feel like...
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know, I drive a much cheaper vehicle, and I'm probably more interested in the safety aspect because I know that I'm buying a product that I will not win the race on the Autobahn. But our customers probably will expect the car will protect me as a customer all the time.
Okay, let's move on to the two other philosophy you mentioned in the beginning. One you covered. Let's move on to the second one. How do you relate that to ADAS or autonomous vehicle?
Basically, the whole point is, what are the gifts that a computer essentially that will drive on my behalf or protect me can give me? So essentially, I feel like in this case, I can repeat the same example. Like, you can have the virtual race between you and the computer, and that would be very specific within the market where we are working, what I'm working. But then if I expand on like probably a wider range of customers, so like I was reading an article a few days ago just to learn a bit more during this specific period, and it was about neuro-linguistic programming. And so the article was talking about how many opportunities, how many things we do not see, how many places do not enjoy, how many shops we don't know that they are there on a commute that on which we are on every single day of the year. So then I can see that again, that specific store, that specific field, that beautiful view on the highway could be the gift that autonomous driving will give back to the driver. And I feel like the driving experience will become much more enjoyable. I think other aspects of our life will then benefit because I will get to work less stressed. I will get back to my family more relaxed and happier. So I feel like this is a win-win race, actually.
Fascinating. And do you want to also relate the third point that you mentioned?
Yes. So the third point was about not knowing what's between the start of an adventure and when you join the adventure. And I feel like in this aspect, I think this is the safety part. Although it's not the core of our work, we have to be as safe as possible. Again, our customers don't expect the cars to fail, and no one should really expect the car to fail, especially when you put the car on remove the stability control, etc., etc. The car will show you that you really need that safety behind you. I'd like to use another story of my experience, if you don't mind. And this goes back to my interview when I joined the automotive business coming from aerospace. And I remember that the question was how to test the software that commands the glove box, such a simple thing in the car. And I went all over the place with my own theories of how to build the best test system. And I created all the requirements, etc., etc. And then my interviewers, they were saying, yeah, this is all great, but still is a glove box. And I feel like the assumptions that we take whenever we get into a car, in this case, are a lot. And why did I mention that? Is because to me, it was an assumption that I had to test to make sure that out of 1 million operation of that glove box, it would have not failed. But then I had to take a lot of people on the same journey as me, because probably the necessities, the needs, the environment, the framework of the automotive industry didn't require that level of attention. Now, back to I don't know what is behind. I feel like autonomous driving will require a bit of pitch sales, sponsoring of what would be the world without it.
That's a fascinating question. How will the world look like without autonomous vehicle? I mean, essentially pretty much like now, but what would be interesting in terms of you already brought in functional safety here, and you talked about unknown. I think this is the perfect segue to talk a little more about functional safety. And yeah, the word unknown is really the key point here when it comes to autonomous vehicle functional safety. And as you know, that you can only take a safety measure when you know something. The environment that we will take input from, there are so many unknowns that it is almost impossible to cover everything, right? And the unknown is really the risky part. So can you share some of your experience with functional safety, and how do you think functional safety and ADAS will go hand in hand?
Sure. So again, functional safety is another very interesting story, my experience at work. I say that because part of my 7-year experience in my current role has seen me leading a small team of software testers, system engineers. And so we had the difficulty in having the team really to get excited about the whatever functional safety task they had to explore, expand, test, whatever was the need of the day. But also we had the difficulty in making sure that the people in decision making positions, they would appreciate the work necessary to get to a safe position, safe position. So given that, luckily legislations helped us get to that point, helped the whole, company accept first and then understand later the complexity of functional safety. I'd like to take you on board of a people aspect of functional safety. So I mentioned that younger engineers that I was leading had to work on functional safety aspects, and top management engineers and directors, they had to engage on the same journey. Both of these set of stakeholders initially didn't see the functional safety as a fun task to work on. They all wanted to just work on the most challenging calibration to have the vehicle perform faster. So then I said, how can I bring these people on board? And so I reflected on myself and I said that really my job is not to be the technical project manager of today, the software integration engineer of yesterday. I'm just an individual with my own passions and my own dreams. And I need to get to the point where I'm happy when I find my joy, and just functional safety or all the other aspects of engineering are the tool to get to that point. So I challenge my team to not consider themselves as an automotive engineer, but see themselves as an individual to look at their own joy. And given that they cannot choose the fact that I give them a task about functional safety, their job was to find the joy in the task that I was giving to them. And I feel like we have been talking about shifting the horizon, shifting the point of view under different circumstances. And this was, in my opinion, a huge mindset to work on. But I love the journey. I love the journey, and I could see that people, after looking at me as if I was, coming from a different planet with this weird idea, they actually enjoyed it and they made it theirs.
That is fascinating. That is really powerful. So when you did the mind shift for your team, did it have any impact in productivity? Positive?
Luckily, my team was not so big, but it was quite diverse in the personality of the individuals. And so everyone went through that challenge differently. All of them went through what our brain deals with whenever there is a change involved. So I could see the people that would resist to the idea and they were angry initially, people that were just, not engaged at all. They thought it was either boring or completely nonsense. And so I struggled to engage them. Regardless, because the change cycle given is a thing of our brain. Everyone, they went through their own coping mechanism from the moment when I shared the idea to the moment where they either came on board with me or they just found their own version. So I'm not here to force every idea that I have on you. I'm really happy actually if you do find your own way. But every single one of these engineers or technicians or whoever I talked to and I shared this idea with, they all found their own way to deal with the change.
Fascinating. So let me ask you some kind of like questions where I want to see your opinion. How do you think we should grow together in the world of ADAS or autonomous driving? What should be the transition? If you could look into the future, how do you think we're going about it, and how should we proceed with this?
It's all about finding the right story to tell. So with the right story to tell, you will have people behind the wheel excited. You will have people that work on the development of the autonomous driving technologies excited. You will have people that build the car excited. Obviously, it's a bit different to find a story that will tell the customer tomorrow, actually, he or she will go faster. It is different. That story will be different from the story that you will tell to a new graduate student that will have to work on potentially what would be a very boring engineering task. And the story will also be different whenever that story will be told to the person on the manufacturing line that will have to, I don't know, build the car. To build the car, will have to install who knows how many cameras onto the car. So everyone will have to be obviously part of the same journey. And I feel like like any other aspect, any other change, any other new thing, it's about telling the right story to these people, because they all deserve it. And so the overall product is just a good product if everyone essentially is happy. If you go back to my own example of joy, if every single one of these individuals that you will take on board with you, from the supplier to the engineers to the customers to whoever else, if they do find their own joy, that's a win.
So who do you think should be the storyteller? Whose job is to come up with a story? Is it Elon Musk, or is it who should it be?
Essentially, everyone in their own environment, they have an opportunity to share their own story. So essentially what I'm doing here now, I'm telling my own story to you. Hopefully you got to a new perception of autonomous driving that you didn't have before. And guarantee that if that happened, it will make you thinking, and it will make you probably more willing to tell another story to another person. So I feel like you have the two typical approaches, bottom up, top down. I believe that it's a numbers game, and so then I believe that it's a bottom up approach. Everyone has to just change and find their own beauty, understand what makes them excited, and share it.
Fascinating. Now, let me ask one more question, which would relate to trust. So in order for us to really move into 100% autonomous vehicle, like our Chancellor Merkel says that in 20 years, we will need a special permission to drive a vehicle. So this could be the new reality. What we need is to gain the public confidence. However, with some high-profile accidents that we have seen in certain autonomous settings, what do you think of public trust in the technology? Are we a little bit too premature selling a fully autonomous level 5 vision? Or in terms of safety and trust, where do you think we are, and where do you think we would be going? And what is the right thing to do?
What comes to mind is, again, my example with my own career. So autonomous driving is essentially having an aircraft. So if you come on board on the aircraft, you trust the pilot and you trust all the computers on board that will take you from point A to point B. Some people are a bit scared, but essentially the majority of people, they trust the machine. So how the aerospace industry got there, I don't know the full history, but and I think it's not the point, but the point is that you have already one very successful example So you can just say, well, to the person that doesn't trust the system, just ask them, have you ever been on an airplane? But then obviously you have to, to have another huge shift of expectation, etc. Because in my opinion, what happens onto the plane is that people recognize that they do not know how to fly a plane, and therefore they do not probably question, because they don't know what question to ask themselves. We all drove a car, and so it's a bit harder. One example is to point them to another industry that already did it, like I said, or to gain trust, you can just say, show them examples of vehicles that on a test track, they start to actually become safer and safer by driving themselves. Other examples could be simply when we all buy a car, not only focus from a selling point of view onto the features that are flashy and that are cool and they're good to share with the customer, but also say, if you do not use these features, that's what might happen, because that's what the computers at the moment they are doing for you. So I feel like that would be a good eye-opener to any customer, really.
Fascinating. So, Davide, my last question. What will be the most positive thing you think is going to happen, because we will have to adapt, or we'll have to learn to adapt to autonomous vehicle from being manually driven car?
So one is a bit of a cliche, is like time. You get back your time.
Absolutely.
Commute or whatever else. But I feel like if I connect the dots that I just of the stories that I share with you, I cannot tell you what your dream is, but I'm almost sure that in the numerous driving experiences that you will have from now to, who knows, in the next decade, the things that you will learn and the things that you will enjoy, because you are not attached to the steering wheel and you are not forced to take yourself to a different place, will be incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Time and the enormous opportunity that autonomous vehicle will bring for us, it's just totally underrated. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for being with us here. It was a pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure for me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching the episode. If you have liked the episode, please feel free to smash the like button, share this video with your peers, with your friends, and if you have any questions, comment, please write in the comment section below. So see you in the next episode.